This is BRICS Global Television Network's weekly roundup. Hello, I'm Juliet Newell. We begin with the headlines. Delayed crude and fuel payments put pressure on the Kremlin. Who stands to benefit from the terror attack on Russia? What happens now in the Steinhoff saga? And BRICS eyes artificial intelligence global governance. We begin in Russia, where the Kremlin's under pressure due to delayed payments for crude and fuel. Banks in China, the United Arab Emirates and Turkey are reportedly becoming more compliant with US secondary sanction requirements. This has caused delays in paying Russia and in some cases, no payments at all. According to Reuters, some banks in the UAE have suspended accounts linked to trading with Russia. Several banks in China, Turkey and the UAE still process payments, but can take weeks or even months to conclude the transactions. Whilst Russia says these delayed payments can create problems, it says they cannot become obstacles to the further development of trade and economic relations with China. Around 16,500 sanctions have been imposed on Russia since it invaded Ukraine in February 2022, mostly from the United States, the European Union and the United Kingdom. Staying in Russia, President Vladimir Putin wants to know who stands to benefit from the Crocus Hall terror attack. On Friday, the 22nd of March, gunmen dressed in camo stormed the venue on the outskirts of Moscow and opened fire on concert goers. The building was then set alight, and at least 139 people have died and around 100 wounded. The death toll is expected to rise as some of the victims remain in critical condition in hospital. Thousands of fans had gathered inside the venue for a performance by a local rock band. The concert hall has a capacity of more than 6,000. But Putin wants to know what the motive was for the attack. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the massacre, but the Russian president's trying to link it to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed these claims and says it's not surprising Putin's trying to blame his country for the attack. It's hoped more will emerge when the 4 suspects facing terror charges appear in court again. The 4 men are reportedly from Tajikistan. And it's colourful, it's festive, and it's one of the most popular and significant Hindu annual celebrations. The streets of India have come alive as the festival of colours, love and spring, Holi, marks the end of winter. The colourful processions, singing, dancing and feasts. It also celebrates the divine and eternal love of the deities Radha and Krishna. Up next, BRICS Business. In South Africa, there are concerns about prosecuting those responsible for one of the biggest ever fraud cases following the suicide of former Steinhoff International CEO Marcus Jooste. Many hoped he would reveal more about what has been found to be fraud, with 106 billion in overstated sales. He took his life in South Africa's Western Cape last week. Around 200 billion rand was wiped out in share value after Jooste resigned and admitted there were problems and then failed to answer the company's board. Many lost their life savings, with calls for Jooste to be prosecuted. BGTN's Ray White spoke to Rob Rose, the author of Steinheist, to find out more.
Steinhoff continues to be a hot topic of conversation in South Africa and throughout the world. Within a matter of days, we saw 200 billion rand wiped off the markets. A lot of people asking, will that money ever return to those who lost that 200 billion rand? Well, joining me is Rob Rose. He's the author of Steinheist. Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Ray.
Take us through 2015 to 2017. What happened with Steinhoff?
Well, Steinhoff was coming from a period when it was becoming the world's second largest furniture retailer. It owned companies in Australia, companies in Europe, Conforama in Europe. It was this massive entity. It had bought Pepco in South Africa, which included Pep and Ackermans and some of the biggest brands. So it was a monster. But what happened in 2015 is that the German authorities raided Steinhoff in Europe. They felt that there was some fraud going on, so they raided it on the eve of its listing in Frankfurt, which was meant to be Steinhoff's big homecoming. And 2 years later, in December 2017, Marcus Jooste, unable to answer queries from the auditors, sort of tearfully handed in his resignation to the chair, Christo Visser. And the next morning, Steinhoff admitted there had been accounting irregularities. But in the lead up to that, and the previous weeks before that, that asked, where's the money coming from? The auditors couldn't get answers to their questions. And the auditors said to Christo Visser, who was the chair at the time, do you know that your management has been defrauding Steinhoff of many millions over many years? And the company was shocked by this, but it turns out that was the case.
So the executive reports to the board, and like you said, we got Christo Visser. How is it that he knew nothing about what was going on?
Well, Ray, that's a very good question. I think it's not just Christo Visser, it's the board itself. You have 3 accounting PhDs on Steinhoff's board, and they have an accounting scandal. This is probably the most well-resourced board in South Africa. It's a superstar board. You have people like Johan van Zyl, who was the former CEO of Sanlam. You have Steve Boyson, who was the former CEO of ABSA. You have really fantastic people on this board, and yet all this slipped through. When you ask Christo Visser about this, he will point to the fact that all the regulators also let it slip through, that the auditors also let it slip through, that the bankers who lent it money had been through the accounts and didn't pick this up. So it seems like a massive failure at 1,000 different levels.
Yeah. When did this start? Let's go back to 2015. German authorities, they get involved, they start investigating. Did it start back then? When did the rot start?
So the rot started long before. A report by PwC, the forensic auditors, said that what had happened is that Steinhoff had defrauded, had created fictional profits of, it was something mammoth, it was 106 billion rand over more than a decade. So this is from 2010, 2011. And the charges in Germany recently against certain of those Steinhoff executives date back to 2011. In the stories we've investigated at Financial Mail and Ambo Bongani, we trace this back many years before that even, to when Marcus Jooste, the CEO of the company, was doing deals to benefit himself, doing side deals that at the expense of shareholders. So it actually went back long before. It seems like a long-standing pattern of illicit behavior at Steinhoff.
Could the BRICS group dominate artificial intelligence governance soon? Well, it's certainly on its radar. With Russia presiding over BRICS this year, it's taken the opportunity to prioritize science and advanced technology, with cooperation on artificial intelligence a strong focus. The BRICS group has for many years tried to challenge Western domination of technologies and infrastructure. Though the alliance has not been able to realize some of its proposed initiatives, some are starting to bear fruit, and this includes the group's technological ambitions, like cooperating on satellite data exchange, as well as digitizing commercial and financial services. And AI has been on BRICS' radar since 2017, when it was identified as a key focal point. 5 years later, in 2023, BRICS founded the AI Study Group, aimed at developing governance frameworks and standards. The BRICS-led New Development Bank, or NDB, is embracing the technology and has already included AI in its operations. The AI and AR-generated NDB calendar, PAL, was launched earlier this year. It's virtual assistant that provides cutting-edge solutions for customers. On to Brazil now, where the country's biggest oil company, Petrbras, has lost significant market value in the past few weeks. Many analysts are linking this to Brazilian President Lula da Silva's interference in the company. This has also raised concerns that Brazil's main oil competitor, Russia, may take up some of their market share. BGTN correspondent in Sao Paulo, Chris Goldenbaum, has more.
Brazil is currently the 7th largest exporter of oil in the world. Experts believe that by the end of the decade, Brazil will be top 5, perhaps even higher. For this to happen, however, the political class and Petrobras must get along. Otherwise, Brazil will compete even with BRICS members, and that could be a threat. Chris Goldenbaum, BGTN, São Paulo, Brazil.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
Now, can your program be copied overseas, or is it exclusively designed for South Africa's society?
So it can definitely be replicated. We've replicated it in businesses even, and we've used it in after-school programs that are not in school specifically. So we've already seen that it works in different contexts, and we'd love to take it overseas, because obviously a few tweaks here and there, if needed, can be made. But the point is the basic model is something that anyone can use.
Every white cross represents a farmer who has been murdered. Some call these the forgotten farm murders.
A quick look now at some of the BRICS sports stories making headlines. It's all smiles for Egypt after taking home a staggering 189 medals from the 13th All-Africa Games held in Ghana, placing the country in the #1 spot for medals won. South Africa athletes also shone, scooping 106 medals. Around 5,000 athletes from Africa competed in 29 disciplines, with some tough competition in what the organising committees hailed some high-level sports. The 2024 World Rally Championships began its next stage, the Safari Rally being held in Kenya. 29 cars take on the Kenyan safari leg of the champs, in stark contrast to the captivating winter terrain in Monte Carlo and Sweden. It's a third stage of the rally, with Thierry Neuville and his teammate achieving victory in the first race in Italy, and Esa-Pekka Lappi taking the win in the next race in snow-covered Sweden. And Elfyn Evans has finished on the podium in both races, but it's anyone's guess as to who will take the honours in Kenya. The East African country's rainy season poses the ever-present risk of heavy downpours, no doubt adding to the already challenging level of difficulty. And with just 3 points separating Thierry Neuville and Elfyn Evans in the provisional standings, the two are hoping for wins, marking the first time either of them has taken a win in Kenya. Coming up, how teenage pregnancies in South Africa can rob young women of their youth, and another challenge faced by many young girls in the country, the real cost of that time of the month. But first, what you can look forward to on BGTN in the coming weeks.
On 3. Let's go. Right hand on 3 for super.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
This blind kid arrives. I get emotional. And he's special needs and he's blind. And they can't talk to him. So I grab him and I put him on the boxing bag and I put the gloves on and I illustrate to him, hit the bag. And just to see this child learn in 1 minute how to let his aggression go, and he loved it. And he was squealing because obviously he was mentally challenged and things like that. Just to see that, sure, it was incredible.
The number of teen pregnancies in South Africa rapidly increasing. According to Statistica, as of 2022, around 4% of females aged 14 to 19 fell pregnant, and that number is on the rise, with an estimated growth of between 1 and 1.5% year on year. BGTN's Yolanda Pondo has more.
With girls as young as 15 years old falling pregnant and risking their life chances. Winnie Mandela Secondary School in Johannesburg, South Africa, continues to experience a surge in the number of pregnant teenagers.
I was 15 years of age. I was in a relationship and hence it wasn't a planned thing. At first, I panicked a lot. And the first person whom I contacted was my best friend. I had to be more responsible, stay more focused, and I had to cut some ties with certain things like going out and hanging out with my friends.
Learners get pregnant now, even in grade 8. Unlike maybe in the past, we experienced teenage pregnancy starting from grade 10. It's a very huge thing that is happening and that is disturbing them in their schooling. Some get worried, some want to do abortions, some are frustrated as they are child-headed themselves, some are orphans, some are poor, so it really affects them negatively.
I just count around our area, not the whole South Africa, around our area only. More than 100 girls are falling pregnant. They are not working. We are not working. We are renting. Even there where I'm staying, I'm renting this place.
With all factors considered, young girls who fall pregnant experience socioeconomic, health and educational challenges. Giving birth at such a young age increases risk of maternal deaths.
There's a lot of pressure on social media, and those are certainly factors that we think contribute to our teenage pregnancies. Our focus is of course mostly on improving information and access around sexual and reproductive health. So we know that it's not ideal, and we know that we have more maternal deaths at both ends of the age spectrum.
We used to support her just because we know that Serena, at school, she's very brilliant. Then I turn off my mind, then no, I must support my girl. Whereas I know deeply from the bottom of my heart that my heart is very broken.
I do miss my freedom. I sometimes wish things never did happen. At some time, I do console myself and be like, things do happen with a purpose. Parenting is not a child's play. It requires a lot of energy, a lot of self-motivation. If then you would like to be a parent, just know that your life will completely change. Kids really depend on the parents. If you're not independent, then it's a huge problem. You'll end up committing things like suicide.
And finally, that time of the month, particularly challenging for many young women in South Africa who cannot afford the necessary products needed. And this impacts many areas of their lives, including attending school. BGTN's Tana Bester takes a look at the impact this has on young women.
A girl, as we speak right now in South Africa, who has already missed the day of school today or cannot go to school tomorrow simply because they do not have a packet of sanitary pads. So affordability is a big issue.
We buy pads for ourselves. We keep them in the sick bay. So if a child is in need, when they come to the sick bay, we know that we have to give them. Pads are very expensive. And then even if the child knows I'm on my periods, because at home they didn't buy, the child will pretend as if it just started now, knowing exactly that it started long, the only thing at home they don't have.
These young girls come from impoverished homes where food is difficult to come by, let alone sanitary pads. Millions of young girls are in the same situation.
It just makes me feel overwhelmed, like it's too much. The prices are high and I can't afford.
Some days I couldn't have sanitary pads. My mom used to give me a cloth.
4 in 5 South African girls don't have access to menstrual hygiene products. They feel embarrassed and are often afraid, stressed, lonely and helpless when they have their periods. The result is that most of them choose to miss school during this time, which causes them to fall behind in their studies. The term menstrual poverty has been coined.
I found out they were using rags, tissue, t-shirts, newspaper, grass, feathers, sand, all kinds of terrible, unhygienic things, even cow dung wrapped in a cloth. Anything unhygienic just to try and absorb the blood. I just thought, I don't want these girls to be dependent on me. I want them to have their freedom and to enjoy their period without being dependent on anybody. I wanted to take the age-old solution, which is the cloth pad, but modernize it with new fabrics, new designs, so that it can actually work for the modern woman.
Palesa Pads packages reusable sanitary products that last up to 5 years. Owner Cherie de Vet read an article about girls missing school because of this, quit her job and used all her money to set up this organization to help provide sanitary pads to girls who couldn't afford to buy them.
Palesa pads have been really helpful because I can use them more than once. They're very comfortable, they do not leak, they do not stink, so yeah, they've been very helpful.
I cannot come to school whenever I'm on my periods, yes, and I can walk freely.
For these young girls, it's a life changer.
We need to do the best we can to make sure that our young girls, our sisters, our cousins, and those girls in the communities where we come from are always taken care of, more especially with issues of sanitary pads.
And that's it for this week. And remember, we're on social media. Keep checking in so you can keep up to date with what's happening in BRICS countries.